بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We are back at the Black Muslim Thought, the AHAD Black Muslim Thought podcast with our second presentation on the Fiqh of Fasting. This is the AHAD Fiqh of Fasting refresher for 1447 AH, and we are continuing where we left off into the second presentation for the Fiqh of Fasting. These slides are from the previous years by which we actually were counting up to the month of Ramadan from Sha'ban. So as you can see, every day, at one time, every day we would go out and we would take a picture of what the days look like and preparing for Ramadan, mashallah. So to recap, fasting is siyam. The definition of fasting or saum is imsak, restraining with intention by which we fast to draw nearer to Allah. And what are we restraining from? We are restraining from food, drink, and spousal activity. How long do we fast? For Ramadan, we fast the entire month, and the act of worship is a fard al-ayn. It's an individual obligation. This is a new word that we didn't use last time. Fard al-ayn, there are two different types of fara'id in this sense. There's the fard al-ayn and the fard al-kifaya. The fard al-ayn is the individual obligation. This is the obligation that each individual is obligated to do, whereas the fard al-kifaya is a communal obligation by which if someone does it within the community, the whole community is sound. But if no one does this fard al-kifaya, then the entire community now becomes sinful, right? So for the month of Ramadan, it's a fard ayn. It's an individual obligation that you fast the entire month, as long as you fulfill the requirements and you fulfill the conditions of being someone who can fast, which is that you are Muslim, you are sane, you are resident, and you are healthy. And I'm sure that I'm missing one, but we'll get back to it, inshallah. When do we fast? The fast begins at true dawn and ends at the setting of the sun, when the disk literally goes below the horizon. That is the definition of maghrib, sunset, of every day one fasts. It is obligatory to fast in these five instances, and we went over the legal rulings of the Sharia. And the fasting that is fard, that is obligatory, with the implication that if we do it, we are rewarded, and by leaving it, we are eligible for punishment, is fasting the entire month of Ramadan, making up the fast of Ramadan and any other obligatory fast for any reason, fasting the expiation. When we make when we are deserving of a kafara or expiation, we have to fast, and the kafara is fasting. That would be obligatory. Vowing to Allah to perform a fast if we make and this wasn't said last time, vowing to Allah to perform a fast if we swear that we're going to fast for a particular reason, now that becomes obligatory on us. And then also pronouncing the jihad against one's wife, that would also be a reason by which one would fast to expiate for that type of divorce. The obligation of fasting. Fasting, Ramadan is a well-known pillar of the five pillars of Islam. And we know that the five pillars of Islam are the Shahadatan, bearing witness that there is no God except Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger, praying, Salah, the five daily prayers, Zakat, Zakatul Mal, the obligatory Zakatul Mal, right? And then fasting on the month of Ramadan, and also going on to the Hajj if one is able to do so. Anyone who denies that fasting Ramadan is not obligatory would be considered out of the fold of Islam. So by denying the belief that Ramadan is obligatory, by denying the belief that Ramadan is obligatory, would actually take you out of the fold of Islam. It's kufr. A Muslim who refuses to eat, though, but confirms its obligation, is just sinful. And it's not just sinful as if it's not something to be worried about. If you have the ability to fast and you fulfill the conditions of a faster, you are a Muslim, but you just refuse to fast, then you're committing a major sin. Well, what about recommended fasts? According to Ibn Ashar, rahimahullah, he mentions in the Mushra Mu'in there are 4 recommended times of fasting. the month of Rajab, which is the sacred month that precedes the month that we're in now, the month of Sha'ban. The month of Sha'ban, which is the month that we are in, the month of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the entire month of Muharram, but especially the 10th of Muharram, the day of Ashura, right? And then the first 9 days of Dhul Hijjah, especially the 8th and the 9th, the 8th being the start of the Hajj, and the 9th being the day of Arafah. And this fasting would be for those who are not on Hajj. The people that are on Hajj would not be fasting. These are recommended fastings. These are mendubat, the mendubat of fasting, or the fasting that is mustahab, right? Abu Hassan al-Maliki al-Shadhili rahimahullah in his Muqaddimah adds the following fasting the 9th and 10th of Muharram. So instead of just fasting the 10th of Muharram, right, but he specifies fasting the 9th and 10th, and as we know, others also specify fasting the 10th and the 11th, right? And then also there's an opinion to fast all three. And also another recommended fasting that Sheikh Abu Hassan Ali al-Maliki al-Shadhili rahimahullah mentions is fasting 3 days of each month. Voluntary fasting. It's mustahab to fast at least 3 days of every month. Fasting these 3 days is as if you fasted the entire month, according to hadith. And these 3 days do not have to be the ayam al-ba'id, right? The days that precede the nights of the full moon, right? Laylatul Ba'ida, right? It doesn't in those nights in which you see the full moon at night are usually, but not always, the 13th, 14th, and 15th of every Hijri month. Outside of those specified times, one can fast voluntarily on any day, with the exception of the days that are forbidden to fast, such as the days of the Eid. On the days of the Eid, Eid al-Fitr, which is the 1st of Shawwal, and on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, it is haram to fast. Okay? So as we mentioned before, right, when we asked, when does fasting, the act of fasting, fall into the legal ruling of obligatory? When does it fall into the legal ruling of mustahab, mandub? When does it fall into the ruling of haram? Now we are seeing that. It is also permissible in the Maliki school to fast on Friday without adding a day, right? And this is different from other schools. That's an ikhtilaf, a difference of opinion between the madhahib. In studying fiqh, you will notice that the acts of worship are divided into several categories that are somewhat in line with the legal rulings of the Sharia. Each act of worship has conditions of validity, by which, if you fulfill these conditions, then the act is valid. Conditions of obligation, which means conditions by which if you have these particular conditions and characteristics, then now you're obliged to do a thing. And then the act itself, within it, it has fara'id, or obligatory acts within it. It has sunan, recommended acts, fada'il, which is another type of sunan, virtuous acts, right? Disliked acts, right? That would still render the deed valid, but it would be suboptimal. And then haram acts that would make the deed, which may leave the deed still valid, but you did something haram within that act. And then also things that would invalidate the act totally. So according to Ibn Ashur, the obligations of fasting are 5. The author of the Muqaddimah categorized them as 3, but both encompass the same obligations. The first is intention, niyyah. One must intend to fast. Any fast without intention is invalid. So if you just go, I mean, it's difficult to do so, but if because you have to, intention is not something that you say, it's something that's in your heart. So, but when you fast, your intention has to be specific, because the fasting can spans the spectrum of the Sharia, of the rulings of the Sharia. You have to be very specific, or in other words, for lack of a better term, very, very intentional when you fast. Or you have to be specific about your intention. The intention must be made, and then there's a timing for when you do for when you make intention. So in the Maliki school, this intention must be made after Maghrib or before Fajr. From Maghrib, you have a window from Maghrib to the Fajr of the day that you're going to fast, or anywhere in between the two, right? So that's the window from the Maghrib of the night to the Fajr of the day that you're going to fast. And an intention made after Fajr for fasting would relegate the fast invalid. And this is according to the Maliki school. Again, there's a difference of opinion in other schools. Right. The intention must be specific, as there are many reasons why one may fast. Right. You may be intending to fast for Ramadan, or you just may be intending to fast for Mondays and Thursdays, right, which is another time of recommended fasting, right? Or you may be intending to make up a fast, which would be obligatory, right, and not voluntary, not mustahab, right? So it's very important to know why you're fasting, to have proper intention, right? To have a specified intention. The intention of fasting must occur before the first. For Ramadan, the intention of fasting for Ramadan must occur before the first Fajr of Ramadan. In the Maliki school, the intention of fasting occurs on the night before the first day of Ramadan, after it is confirmed that the next day will be Ramadan. So on the 29th or 30th of Sha'ban, if the moon is sighted on that 29th, on the evening, on the evening that precedes the day of the 29th, right? And so when we sight the hilal, then we make the intention that we will fast the entire month of Ramadan, which will begin at Fajr of that day, right? And if we didn't see the moon, then we would complete 30 days, and on the evening of the 30th, well, the night precedes the day, so the evening that precedes the 30th day, which is technically the first of Ramadan, then we would make an intention from that Maghrib, within the window of that Maghrib and that Fajr, to fast the entire month of Ramadan. So one's intention would be to fast, and I keep saying this so now you understand why. One's intention would be to fast the entire month of Ramadan to draw nearer to Allah. After this, one will not have to make the intention to fast during Ramadan again, except if they break their fast within Ramadan, in which they would have to renew their intentions. So, for example, we sight the moon on the 29th of Sha'ban, and I believe today is the 20th. So we sight the moon on the 20 on the night that precedes the 29th day of Sha'ban. Then right after we sight the moon, because usually the moon is sighted after the sun is set anyway, we intend I intend in my heart, I'm going to fast the entire month of Ramadan. You get the 15 days of Ramadan, you fast and you have no problem, but then you get sick. May Allah protect us all from getting ill. And if we get ill, may Allah make it an expiation of our sins and a raising of our station. But say like you get ill, and you get ill to the point where you can no longer fast, right? You go to the doctor, you get your medication, you have 3 days where you just can't fast, you're sick in the bed, except that you can go to the doctor and get your medication and come back in the bed. After you take your medication, right, you're back to full health, you're healthy again. Now, the evening before you intend to fast, you make the intention, now I'm going to finish up Ramadan. Right? You make the intention, I'm going to finish the fasting for the entire month of Ramadan, and that's that specific intention, because you had to break up your fast because of your sickness. Intention should be decisive and not based upon probability. So intending to fast on the day of doubt, which is the 29th day of Sha'ban, really the 30th, in case the next day is Ramadan, wouldn't suffice. So we don't. Our actions are based upon certainty and not upon doubt. So you don't fast just in case. You fast with intentionality and with certainty. And to do otherwise would be invalid. Would render the fast invalid. Now, how do you determine the entrance of Ramadan? The time of Ramadan is determined in 2 ways. As I said, by sighting the new moon on the 29th, on the night, the evening that precedes the 29th of Sha'ban. And why do I keep saying that? Because the night precedes the day. So on the 29th day, when that sun sets, it's technically the next day. That's when the day begins. But the day begins with the night, right? So once that sun sets, if you sight the moon after the sun has set, right, in the western horizon, then that means on the 29th of Sha'ban, that means that next day rather, is the first day of Ramadan, and you have just entered the first night of Ramadan. And this is why we pray Taraweeh prayer the night that the moon is sighted, because not technically, in reality, it's the first night of Ramadan once that hilal is sighted. Okay, very important. And if you don't sight the moon on the 29th, then you complete the 30th day of Sha'ban, right? I didn't see it. I'm not certain that it appeared, so now I'm fasting on the 30th. The next day now, that night is now the 30th night of Sha'ban, and I'm not fasting on the 30th. That's the day of doubt, right? Because I may wake up in the morning and somebody might have said, I saw it. And if I go to sleep and I go, well, I'm going to fast just in case I missed it, somebody else didn't miss it, that wouldn't be valid, right? I didn't see it. We're counting the 30, period, right? And then that night, after that 30th night when the sun sets, then you would intend to fast for Ramadan. The new moon is confirmed by moon sighting in two ways. So once somebody sights the moon, how do you how do you know if the moon was actually sighted? In the Maliki school, if two upright, trustworthy witnesses testify that they sighted the moon in your community, then that would be acceptable as a valid report that the moon has been sighted. If you receive two testimony from two upright, trustworthy witnesses that the moon has been sighted, and a trustworthy witness, according to the commentary of the Murshid al-Mu'in, would be a male, a mukallaf, an adult, and a free person who is trustworthy and knowledgeable of the fiqh of astronomy and the fiqh of astronomy, really. So right, it doesn't make any sense to follow somebody who says, I saw the moon, and they know nothing about where the moon is. Where did you see it? I saw it in the eastern horizon in the evening. No, you didn't, because we know that the sun follows the moon follows the sun, and we know exactly where it should be. It should be in the western horizon, in the upper left quadrant of the sky in the western horizon after the sun sets. So if you say you saw it in the eastern horizon, either you made a mistake with your words or you don't know what you're talking about, by which your testimony would not be accepted, right? So then if you don't have two upright, trustworthy people, another report would you accept is you would accept the report of a large group of many people who testify to have seen the moon, or who have testified that they have seen the moon, right? Okay, so now we move from there. So I'm gonna move this back to another screen. There we go. So now, inshallah, we're gonna move to another slide that we can continue. This slide was based upon the 15th of Sha'ban, and I should be able to slip the slide. We've already made we made several videos about the 15th of Sha'ban that inshallah will be shared shortly. You know, as of now, the 15th of Sha'ban has departed us, but it's important to note that the 15th of Sha'ban is a night in which you should settle any grudges. You should write a list for when to ask for Allah, and you should write on any special du'as and salawat that you would like to recite on that day. This is a night when, in the night Laylatul min Nisf Sha'ban. This is a night in which the du'as are accepted, and it's also the night in which it's just an important night. It's a night in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives all of his creation except the idolater, the mushrik, and the mushahin, the one who holds grudges and rancor in their heart, enmity against their brother, sister. Okay, so legal rulings regarding fasting. What does fasting entail? What are the obligations of fasting, the impediments of fasting, the disliked acts during fasting, including that which will break the fast, the recommended acts, and the start. When do we start? When do we break? And what are expiations? So, the obligations of fasting, and we went through this right initially. What are we restraining ourselves from? We are restraining ourselves from eating or drinking. What does this mean? It means from true fajr, from true dawn to sunset, within that window, which is the day, we do not allow anything to enter into the stomach or pass the throat or through any orifice that is connected through the throat. And we also avoid intentional vomiting or swallowing vomit. Or we also would avoid swallowing one's spit or phlegm. This wouldn't invalidate the fast, but it is disliked to do so. Sometimes when you're in the middle of fasting, you may find yourself biting your tongue, right? As if your body is naturally trying to get some moisture from your tongue. So you want to stop that if you find yourself doing that. Injections are also disliked, right? If you but they are permissible. You also want to avoid spousal intimacy during the times of fasting and its results, right? So intentionally doing activities with the results of any discharge from your private parts will break the fast. An unintentional discharge from these places while awake does not result in the breaking of the fast if it wasn't accompanied with some type of charged activity that would cause it. Also, discharge during sleep does not break the fast. If you have a nocturnal emission, your fast is not broken. But if you are intentionally doing activities with the intention to engage in some type of spousal activity or otherwise, where such a thing would occur, then this would break your fast. This would vitiate your fast. Impediments to fasting. Again, one of the conditions of the one of the people who are one of the characteristics for the people who are obligated to fast is that they be sane. And what it means by sane is that one, you have your intellect, right? So this is being insane, right? Going out of your mind for a moment, right? Or passing out, losing consciousness, right? This would be an impediment to fasting, right? The fact that the obligation of fasting will be lifted for such a person. This does not include sleep, though. This becomes an impediment if it occurs once Fajr has arrived. So if for some reason you wake up before Fajr, you eat your suhoor, and then something happens, you get upset, you kind of like lose your mind or you pass out, then the fasting is lifted for you. But then once your sanity or your consciousness is regained, then the fast must be made up if the fast is obligatory. If this state occurs between Fajr and Maghrib and lasts for more than half, and not half, H-A-V-E, but H-A-L-F, half of that time, then the day must be made up if obligatory. But if the condition lasts half the day or less than that, then the fast remains valid. So say like you wake up during Fajr, you had a late night last night, you went out to New York and, you were eating with your friends, you prayed Taraweeh in one of the big masajid, and then you came home and, you got up, you said, okay, I'm going to make you're excited, you went to sleep, but you went to sleep at 3 o'clock to wake up at 5, right? To catch a 5:40 to eat sahur. You wake up, you're groggy, you eat sahur, you eat leftover sahur, but you left it out, you didn't put it in the refrigerator, it plays with your stomach, and now you're about to fast. Fajr comes in, you pray your Fajr prayer, and now you're ready to fast, but your stomach ain't feeling good. Unfortunately, may Allah protect us all, you got food poisoning and you pass out for 3 hours, right? You wake up in the hospital in the emergency room and they go, well, you have food poisoning. How long have I been out? Well, you passed out right after you prayed Fajr and you were passed out for 3 hours. Your fast remains valid. You can continue fasting as long as you have a bill of health. You fine, you can fast. Okay, fine. Right. But if something happens where you lose your sanity or your consciousness for more than half the day, then that day must be made up once you regain your sanity or your intellect. Menstruation and postnatal bleeding is an impediment to fasting. If this occurs anytime between Fajr and Maghrib, there is no fast. So the fast is lifted for this person. And the day must be made up if obligatory. The prevention is lifted when the bleeding is reduced to discharge, and that would not be associated with menses or postnatal bleeding, right? And the book actually goes into great detail as far as what that looks like. As is mentioned here, white or transparent discharge with no color. Okay. Alhamdulillah. And this is the presentation of this is a continued presentation of the fiqh of fasting for AHAD and 1447. We will continue with the next set of slides in the next video. Assalamu alaikum.